want to fuck Fred Durst.
Scream my name, punk!
I'm Rob. I play guitar. I spent some time with Limp Bizkit in the band. John Otto was the drummer, and his cousin Sam Rivers was a bass player, and Fred was the singer. I played guitar. That was the first version of the band.
They're awesome.
They say fuck a lot.
I did not have sex with this man. But she would.
I met Fred Durst at a show. Another band I was playing in at the time. We had played a set that night, and he came up to me after the set and asked if I'd like to come check out his band. And he was into tattooing, just breaking into tattooing at the time.
My name is Nicholas Wagner, the manager here at Westside Tattoo. Freddie Durst was working here for, I believe, a period of 6 to 8 months, and he's ended up in Limp Bizkit, real big, blew up real big. A lot of people in town know who he is and real familiar with him, and he wasn't here long, but we all got to know him.
I met the band, met John and Sam, we jammed. It was, chemistry was pretty incredible. I mean, these guys are good musicians. Fred's a great singer. No doubt about that. He writes great songs. I mean, that happened right from the get-go. There was no question about it. I knew from day one the band was going to blow up.
Hey, we're here to see Limp Bizkit. I can't wait for the show. Hell yeah.
My name's Sean Mahoney. I guess I was the t-shirt guy for a while when I first started out. That's how everybody knows me, the t-shirt guy. Musicians, all of them, outstanding. Outstanding. John, the drummer, is amazing. I mean, he amazes me. I think everybody in the band can play everything. I mean, they got Fred gets on the drums, gets on the guitars. I mean, sitting on the tour bus, Fred plays the guitar on the tour bus, and sitting there making beats. John and Lethal are making beats on the MPC machine and everything. It's pretty cool. They're really good at what they do. I mean, I'll give them that much.
Originally, it was always pronounced Limp Bizkit, I believe, but originally the name was spelled B-I-Z-K-U-T, the biscuit was, but they changed it because they wanted people pronouncing it BizKut, I believe.
One of the guys that worked for the band was known to smoke a lot of marijuana, and he made in passing a remark about his brain being the consistency of a Limp Bizkit due to all the THC, and I think Fred kind of picked up on it and went from there.
Say, hey, we want some pizza.
And it was all, it was history from there. Everybody that you ran into that hadn't heard the name, they were like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? You guys are stupid. What kind of name is that?
And everybody was, oh, corn, and then they'd be like, Limp Bizkit.
But the people that were close to the situation, close to the band, and knew where the name came from, could always have a smirk about it, just always like, yeah, whatever, it's going to be huge.
He signed my $10 bill. He signed my $10 bill. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Fred got into tattooing. He got hooked up with a gig out at a show shop on close to a Navy base on Mayport in Jacksonville, and right next to a topless bar. Both were owned by the outlaw motorcycle gang. And I hooked up with Fred after we started playing together, and hung out at the shop and basically apprenticed under him. And a lot of hanging out, just going next door to the bar, drinking beers, talking to the girls, and doing a little tattooing every now and then, body piercing.
Fred was, from what I understood and what I saw, was fairly popular. He had enough of a following compared to everybody else here. It was about the same. And when his band started to get big, it got a little bigger because, you know, he's on stage, he's telling them where to go and that he's doing tattoos. So naturally they're going to be like, oh, okay, the singer of the band does the tattoo, I want one from him.
I want to fuck Fred Durst.
The place I go to work in Dallas, Frank Lee, who is just one of the most phenomenal and dynamic artists I've ever met. From what I understand, what I've seen, Fred is particularly fond of Frank Lee. Some of his forearm work, some of his more prominent work is from him. And, you know, at least he's got some pretty good taste in some of his artists.
And he continued to work in different shops until I guess 6 months into his career as a tattoo artist, he had a stint in Philadelphia. He worked up there for probably 4 or 5 months, and that was during that time that the band kind of took a break for a while. I'm going to stop here because this is like Wes enters the picture.
The Forbidden Planet on Planet Radio 93.3. That's called Get Up. Right now, here's brand new music from Jacksonville's own Limp Bizkit. This is called No Sex, right here on the Forbidden Planet on Planet Radio 93.3.
I'm Robert Goodman. I do a show called Forbidden Planet and a show called Open House here in Jacksonville on Planet Radio 93.3. My show was like the first show that really supported Limp Bizkit and gave them a lot of airplay. Plus, I drummed a lot of people up to go see their live shows, get record contracts. I also contacted a lot of people in the industry and kind of helped push them towards finding out about the band. Just really believed in the band locally and wanted to see them be a lot more than just another local band. It's been really hard. It's been really hard for bands out of Jacksonville to really go anywhere because there hasn't been a lot of places to play. Jacksonville's a very religious-driven town. The Baptist Church controls the town, and you know it's been really hard for bands to kind of take off and grow somewhere.
My name's Danny, and I'm in the band Happy Hour. Jacksonville is not the easiest town to be a band in that is attempting to make it big. Limited clubs, a very lackluster downtown scene, and just an apathy that most other cities of this size don't have.
It's a small town, you know, through population size, but geographically it's huge. And I mean, there are some good places as far as this town. Like the 5 Points area has like 3 or 4 walls that are commissioned for people to graffiti on. So I mean, they embrace a lot of like the urban elements. You know, they embrace break dancing in a lot of places in 5 Points. A lot of the clubs, I mean, although the scene's kind of exploding down here as far as like the dance scene, I mean, it's a fairly positive, it's staying pretty positive scene. So I mean, there's a few big clubs in Jacksonville. Yeah, there is some dead spots and there can be nothing to do, but it's just like any other town as far as that goes.
My name is Sage, and I'm the ex-girlfriend. and I guess I just helped with the lyrics. He just pretty much wrote about things that we had gone through. That's how I helped that way. First concert that I went to, Limp Bizkit, was at the Milk Bar, and it was there was hardly any people there at all. It was very, very bad, actually. They weren't very depressed, I guess. They were just trying to get around and get out and get people to listen. Just their normal following people, probably 15 people that just knew about Limp Bizkit and just always came to the band room and just was there the whole time. Last year, sometime in Orlando, it was the Ozfest, but they didn't headline or anything, but that was the biggest that he was involved with that I went to. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like flying, but I did it a lot from LA to here all the time, or usually just to different cities that they were at and stay on the tour bus for a couple days and fly home and back and forth all the time, usually. Jacksonville is a very boring town, but it's home, you know, and that's where your roots are, I guess, and so definitely get homesick.
My name's Kevin Conley. I own an independent music store in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. Me and my 3 other brothers have owned a few different establishments in this community for a while. It's a fairly positive, it's staying pretty positive scene. Everybody's starting a band, everybody's starting this, you know. It's almost unbelievable, and I think a lot of it has to do with Limp Bizkit coming from here and making it so big. And Fred's whole approach on like MTV, always talking about he's a fan, now he's on the other side of the barricade. So it really fuels a lot of dreams for people to think that they could make it happen.
What's up, Fred, Wes? I love you.
I think it's nice to see Fred trying to help out some of the people he used to know.
Really, it's hard for a band in Jacksonville to find shows, to even finding rehearsal space here is a hassle for bands. It's a constant struggle. If you want to play in a band in Jacksonville, you're going to have to be dedicated, and you're really going to have to want to do it.
So you'll get everybody and their mother coming in here. They're starting a hip-hop metal band. It's almost gotten to the point that it's out of control now, but I've never seen anybody get recognized as quickly as they have, or, you know, as thoroughly as they have.
How long have you been a fan?
Oh, forever and a day. Oh my God. Ever since I knew the name Limp Bizkit, Counterfeit, man. Oh yeah.
Kick ass. I've been a fan for about 2 years now.
Did you ever see him at the Milk Bar?
Yeah, we saw him at the Milk Bar last year, last November.
So it's pretty cool seeing a local band make it pretty big.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Gives everyone else inspiration.
My name is John Citroni. I am the Arts and Entertainment Editor for Folio Weekly. They were becoming a fairly well-known local band. They didn't have the stature of what might be called a regional act. But I started hearing about them playing, you know, being the calendar editor here at the time, I was putting their show dates into the calendar and misspelling their name. And didn't know much about them except that they were playing the clubs with everybody else.
Their act hasn't really changed. In fact, I remember seeing Limp Bizkit, oh geez, I would say a couple years ago, a good year before $3 Bill Y'all came out, and they were playing a show and there weren't that many people there, but they were still really into it. Fred was still running all over the place and screaming. So the music may not have changed. It may have evolved. I mean, they do some different stuff now. Money and a really good studio can let you do more, but they've just blown up.
Pretty much at the time it was smaller venues, club scenes, a lot of dark places, stuck in the corner, you know. A lot of people, when we first started out, before they knew who Limp Bizkit was, they were like, you know, Limp who? What's that? They played in places like around here, what used to be called Spike's Doghouse, little tiny stage. I mean, you could barely fit them all on the stage. I mean, it was I mean, Fred would be walking around, you know, like in the barricade or whatever. He'd be down on the floor, just, you know, singing, walking around with the people, like the 5 or 10 people that might have been there. You know, he's just hanging out with them.
Band's first show was at a place called Spike's Doghouse in Jacksonville, and we came out on stage and look over, and Fred's got a Metal Flake Blue motorcycle helmet on with a Playboy bunny insignia on the side, no face mask. He looked silly as hell. It was great, and I could hardly play the first song for laughing.
West Borland is performing God, bro.
Limp Bizkit in the house, y'all. Hell yeah.
How long have you been fans?
Ever since they came out with their first album.
Tallahassee. We're from Tallahassee, man.
You come all the way for the concert?
Our car broke down, and so we had to get here from like 20 miles away, and we got a U-Haul.
We had to rent a U-Haul to make it here, but we made it because it's Limp motherfucking Bizkit. Thank you.
Enjoy the show.
Lots of love.
My name is John Jenkins. I work for Sally Corporation. We do animatronics and robotics. I do the digital audio side as well as the programming side, and we also do the mastering here as well. I first met Rob Waters, was the first original guitar player for Limp Bizkit, and he was the one that approached me with the idea to basically record the band at my studio. I've known Rob for a while, and I've known him before that for a few years. He's been in several different bands in Jacksonville, and he decided to approach me with the whole idea of recording Limp Bizkit, and at the time Rob was in another band as well. So I was like, well, yeah, I'll see what I can do with that, and the name kind of threw me at first. You know, I hadn't never heard of a band called Limp Bizkit, but I was like, sure, you know, I'll do that. And we recorded around '95. We put together a 4-song demo and mastered it at another studio, and went from there.
I want to hear some Limp Bizkit, man. Okay, cool. Thanks for listening to Forbidden Planet. Peace. All right, man. Every specialty show plays things for a couple of weeks. They play the flavor of the week, and then they go on to something else. Well, on my specialty show, they were the #1 requested thing for 60 weeks. Things don't last 60 weeks on a specialty show. It was amazing how much the phones would light up. I mean, I could just answer the phone Limp Bizkit line instead of Forbidden Planet. It's just crazy.
The Limp Bizkit's music at the time, when we did the first demo, was very similar to it as it is now. It was just a little more on the heavier side. There was no keyboards. There was no turntables, anything of that nature. It was basically guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. And it sounded a little more stripped down, but I liked it. You know, I liked the material. When they first day of recording, I really liked the material, and told Rob about it. And, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, you record for long enough. I mean, I've been in studios since I was 14, and you know, you record enough bands, you see one like that come along, and you kind of can tell it's a different sound, different kind of vibe, and you know, something could happen with the band.
I think adding DJ Lethal to the roster of Limp Bizkit was when the people in Jacksonville really took notice and said, hey, you know, they got the House of Pain DJ with them. They may really like break out of here. They may really do something outside of Jacksonville and really go somewhere. Because before, I think people, you know, they were a phenomenal local band, but most local bands have stayed local bands. And when you added someone who'd already been touring and been hugely successful, had bands like Rage Against the Machine open up for House of Pain, you know, they realized that they were really going to go somewhere. And I actually had a funny story. The first time I met Lethal was the time they came in with the DAT player to the studio, and they were going to play like a lot of the loose versions of the songs on the air. Well, they came in and they introduced him as Lee, and I knew that he was still living in LA and that he had not moved to Jacksonville. So I was assuming that this was just their friend Lee. And when he got here, he had forgotten the DAT player. And I was like, what do you mean you forgot the DAT player? And I was kind of mad because I thought it was just their friend who was, you know, didn't take it seriously. And I almost could have yelled at him. And then afterwards, he was very cordial. He said, let me go back to my house. I'll get the DAT player. I'll be back in 10 minutes. If you stall for 10 minutes, we'll get the whole thing straightened out. I really apologize. He left, and I looked at Wes, and I said, who was that guy? And he goes, that's Lethal from House of Pain, or formerly from House of Pain. And I just completely felt ridiculous.
When Limp Bizkit added DJ Lethal, I think it definitely changed their sound. He is a very experimental DJ. He's not just somebody that scratches records. You know, he runs his things through, you know, guitar pedals, effects processors, Marshall cabinets. I mean, he really tries to come up with sounds that are going to be just as much a part of the music as a guitar is. And a lot of the times, when you listen to their material, it's like sometimes you can't tell what's what. I mean, and that's a good thing to me. You know, it's like it makes the music that much more interesting to listen to, and not a lot of people are doing that.
Mark Faulkner. I'm a freelance writer for the Florida Times Union. The Milk Bar is a downtown nightclub. It's actually located in the basement of a building. It was very dark. The walls were painted black, the floor was painted black, the ceiling was painted black. There was lighting somewhat, but very minimalistic, a couple bars. But it was, I would say, one of the foremost places for new music in the Jacksonville area at the time.
Did you go see him at the Milk Bar?
Yeah, Milk Bar on Dante's Purgatory.
What's your favorite song that they do?
Break Stuff.
My name's Jason, and this is the Milk Bar at Paradome nightclub. We had a smaller room inside the Milk Bar called the Green Room, and we would audition local bands in there, let them play on a certain night, and then if they brought in a crowd or if they showed promise, then we'd book them to open up for our national acts.
When they were playing in the Green Room in the Milk Bar, little tiny place, I mean, 10, 20 people maybe. I mean, they were loud. They still put on a good show. I mean, they weren't holding back because there wasn't very many people there, I'll tell you that. I mean, they were giving it all they had every time.
They brought in about 30 people the first time they played, which still was not bad for a lot of local bands, and but they had a lot of, you know, they had it together. From then, it almost doubled every time they played.
The first time I saw them live was in March of '96. They were playing as an opening act at the Milk Bar downtown with a band called the Evil Mothers out of San Antonio, Texas. There was probably about 300 to 400 people there for the show, and it was just it just amazed me how much energy the band had while they were on stage. They had complete control over the crowd. The stage setup was very minimal. All they had to the left and to the right on top of the speakers were two little light brights with a flashing red light inside with an L and B cutout on top of the speakers on either side of the stage. But just for their entire set, they wrapped it up with a cover of Paula Abdul's Straight Up, and it was just a phenomenal show. After they were done, the crowd realized they weren't doing an encore, that everyone left, and there was about 12 people for the headlining act.
It seems that whether it's a tattoo or cleaning somebody's floor, as long as you get the demo into the right hands at the right time, it's key to your success.
As far as Limp Bizkit, you know, making a connection with Korn, I thought it was pretty logical. I mean, they were similar, you know, in sounds. Fred somehow, I think he was tattooing one of the guys in the band at the time or something of that nature.
Korn played in Jacksonville at the Milk Bar. Fred hooked up with Fieldy from Korn. went up and introduced himself as a tattoo artist and asked if the band wanted to get free tattoos. And he tattooed a Korn tattoo on Brian's back, and pretty awful tattoo. But I think Brian got it covered up.
From what I understood, it wasn't even during business hours. He had met him at a concert. Was like, hey, I do tattoos. Would you like to get one? And then, you know, he was like, okay, sure. You know, they came in, they did the work, and next time they came back, they came looking for Fred. The joke is that he had done something wrong, and they came looking for him, and he got to know him. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the joke that goes around. It could be true or not. You never know.
At the same time, the guys from Korn were dropping the demo into some producers' hands, some execs' hands, and I guess being in the Korn arena and people who are associated with that genre of music, Deftones and Rage Against the Machine before all of those guys, those kinds of producers are looking for those kinds of acts. And I don't want to say it was overnight success, but they certainly had Fred Durst and the rest of the band in the right spot talking about deals.
He slipped Reggie a tape, which Reggie passed on to Ross Robinson, and Ross dug it. Ross was into the band from the get-go. I guess he caught some of the buzz that was going around, and the songs were good. And from then on, it was a matter of Fred working his magic on the phone and talking to management and producers and people in the industry, man. Just he had them all connected like right away. He was hooked up with all these people, and it was never-ending phone calls around the Limp Bizkit rehearsal house. Fred's always getting calls from all these people, and it was clear that Ross was the one to produce the band, but Fred definitely made his way in the business pretty quick.
If I had just one memory to think of Limp Bizkit and my mom, it would be still when they were in my studio and I was basically setting them up, setting the microphones up and kind of telling, you know, Fred, hey, this is the way to do it. You know, this is a microphone that's supposed to be stationary and you're supposed to sing into it this way, and him going, no, I want to, you know, handheld mic. I want to run around. I want to do this and that. And just that was the first impression that I'll always have in my mind. You know, it's a funny thing, and even at that time, you know, I was having to kind of explain things to Fred, and then when we mastered in another studio, I took it to be mastered, and we redid the vocals, and then I just said, okay, this is how you do it, and he finally gave in. So I knew at that point he was going to be somebody to be reckoned with. You know, after we did the demo, the first thing that was on their minds was really not just to start playing out everywhere in Jacksonville. It was really, I kind of got a vibe from Fred and Rob as well, that they wanted to just try and shop, you know, the tape as it was. They really liked the way it turned out.
Originally, there was a demo version of Counterfeit that came in that when Limp Bizkit had opened up for Korn here at the Milk Bar in Jacksonville, they had decided that they were going to make a demo tape, and they needed it immediately. So they went to somebody's house in the middle of the night and recorded a demo tape, and Counterfeit was one of the songs. And it was very, very basic, kind of loose and raw. Actually, the version is really the demo version is really amazing. And they came in, and I recorded it off onto a cart, and we just played it off the cart. That was originally the only track we had, and I played that for almost a year.
As far as Fred Durst is concerned, I think he did have a lot to do with the band because of the fact that he just has a mindset where it's like, yeah, you know, I want to get this band signed, I want to do something musically. So he pretty much, and he has a good personality for that, to talk to other people and to say, you know, this is what we're kind of trying to do. You know, can you do this for us? Can you do that for us? And he's good at that.
Okay, Smith, so nice meeting all you guys.
Awesome. What?
Take off your shirt.
Look, get out of my face, dude.
I know that Korn came through town. They played Club 5, and we took the tape to Korn after they played or before they played one of the two. Went to the bus, gave them the tape. They listened to it. They liked it, you know. And I think they gave it from that point to Ross Robinson. And that's how the ball kind of started to roll.
Fred was pretty abrasive. He was definitely a rock star before he got to be a rock star. He had the mentality, and I can't say I'm surprised he made it, because when someone's that aggressive, they're going to get what they want.
Each one of them in the band would go out and get all their friends to come, and Fred, the singer, was really good about getting people motivated to come out and see his shows.
We left Jacksonville 2 days before Labor Day. On Labor Day morning, approximately 6:30, the driver of the van fell asleep, ran off the road. He overcorrected and crashed the van into a guardrail. Everybody had been sound asleep up until the crash, and right when the van started to sway back and forth, people were waking up, and you heard a lot of screaming, and it happened in a matter of a split second, but it seemed like it was, you know, an hour, because the details are so vivid. We hit a guardrail. The van rolled 3.5 times. I was ejected out of the passenger door window. Fred and Sam received pretty serious injuries on their legs and feet. They were asleep in the back, and their feet went through the window. The two roadies that were, we had 3 with us. One was driving, and there were 2 other guys asleep in the back, and it was such a harrowing experience. These guys, here we are, just everybody sound asleep. Next thing you know, the world's spinning around. The back doors flew open, and one of the guys started to fly out, and one of the roadies reached out, grabbed him, snatched him, held him in place until the van stopped moving. John and Sam and Fred, everybody was all cut up. We were banged up pretty good. Terry Balsamo was also in the van. He had glass coming out of his skin for the next 2 or 3 months. It was pretty laid back. No crazy parties, you know. We had a lot of cookouts, a lot of hanging out, just more hanging out than actual practicing. That was always the speed of the band. You'd come over, and it was fighting over the Sony PlayStation to see who was gonna get the next turn, you know, and a lot of hanging out. And in between all the hanging out and having fun and partying, it was let's go jam. No, like, you know, we got to practice now. This is rehearsal. It's got to be serious. It was never like that. It's always fun. We practiced at the house Fred lived at. He lived there with a guy named Bob, and we practiced as much as possible. Neighbors hated us. Cops were there all the time. The cops showed up at least 2-3 times a week. We usually tried to stop. You know, we'd get a little warning or somebody looking out the window, and now the cops are here. We'd shut down. Everybody would act casual, you know, hang out outside or something in the backyard until the cops left, and they were always pretty cool. Nobody got arrested. They threatened to arrest the residents of the house a couple of times. Never happened. Yeah, the song Stinkfinger was Fred's take on the attitude of the neighbors, which was they didn't like the band being there. The yard always looked like shit. I mean, they never mowed the grass. And this is a pretty nice neighborhood, you know. And the neighbors, they were definitely the black sheep of the block.
Hi.
Cool, that was neat. I like that.
You like that? That was pretty fun, huh?
Good. Are you a fan of Limp Bizkit?
No, they suck. Of course I'm a fan. That's why I paid for a ticket. Dude, I like the remake of Faith the best, dude, out of all of them. But I like the new CD, too. It's pretty tight.
They're pretty real. They kick ass, that's all.
They just had that attitude like, no one knows us anything, but we're going to get what we can and go all the way. And they always had that attitude.
People want to go out and see somebody that fires them up and makes them excited, you know. And I'm like that too, you know. I pick out bands that get me excited. You know, I go out, and when I go to a show, I go sing, you know, Machine Head, Sepultura, Slayer, things that get me worked up. You know, I'll go see a mellower band, but somebody's just standing there playing an instrument's not going to make me excited either, no matter how good they are. So, and what I've seen of Freddie Durst's work, he seems to work them up. He knows what he's doing there.
My name is Don Smith. I have a small company called Creative Town International, and basically what we do is meet bands, different sources, and we listen to the demos they have, and if we think it's something that could be sold to a record label, then we bring them in the studio, redo a better demo, and then we attempt to shop it to the labels. Basically what happened is Sam Rivers, the bass player, came up here to the studio and was excited about a band that he had, and he was telling me all about it, and he'd heard that I would record demos and try to help. And so he invited me over to the band room where they were practicing, and they set a stool up in the middle of the floor, and I sat there and listened to the set, and then I just instantly knew these guys are good. This is real good. It's different, and it's really, really good. So after that, we sat around and talked and tried to make some arrangements to get in the studio, which we did pretty quick.
My name is Pete Thornton. I'm an engineer here at the studio. So I'd gotten a job here, and he showed up on the scene around the same time, I guess, a little bit after. And we started working on different projects, I guess, right from the beginning.
The lineup at the time was Fred Durst, obviously, Wes Borland, his brother Scott, John Otto, and Sam Rivers.
At the time, he said they were rehearsing right down the street from the studio, and I had to see them. They were awesome. And just went on and on about them, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, you know. And eventually he brought them into the studio, and we recorded I guess 3 songs in about 3 or 4 hours. Just, they were totally prepared, just knocked it out in no time. I think that ended up being the demo that got them their record deal, was the one that we did in just a matter of a few hours, you know. Kind of like Rage Against the Corn, like a Rage Against the Machine meets Corn I described their sound as that at the time, just because that's the only way the only 2 types of music that I was familiar with that were ingredients in their sound were those 2 bands, although I think that they've totally developed something different from that.
Pieces of metal and jazz and hip-hop all mixed together. It was just and done their own way. It was done different than anything I ever heard. It was real exciting.
Everybody was in here, and then the drummer was out there with headphones, and they just busted it out, basically one take, I believe.
When I met them, they were already as talented as any seasoned pro you've ever seen in your life, so it was very exciting to be around them when they were working.
Are you a fan?
I'm a dad of a fan.
Oh, what do you think about Limp Bizkit?
I think that I'm on duty tonight watching these 2 right over here.
Are you going into the concert?
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard their music?
Yes, I have.
What do you think?
I think I'll be out in the hallway with all the other parents watching their kids.
They have hooks in all their songs. I mean, they've learned how to master the hook, that's for sure. But I mean, something that wouldn't turn somebody away before they even start hearing the lyrics. You know, something that's so heavy that some guy or some woman or some guy is, oh, this isn't my speed, this is way too heavy. Something that, you know, is like, leads into something and doesn't scare people away in the first couple notes with heavy notes. I mean, once they hook people in like that, you know, and then they're going to get to know them as a heavy band too, but they're going to first learn of them as like a lyricist, people who have heavy lyrics and, you know, or have a lot of good content in their band, or a tight music band.
Well, the things I look for as a music writer, I look for a dedication to their style, to their work, to their music, to their songcraft, and in that show that I saw, I could see the passion behind the music they played. It might not be something that, you know, the common pop listener would listen to, but there's a passion there, a feeling behind it, an emotional impact that the music has.
After we did the demo, it's kind of like they became something so much greater than that. They had people coming from record labels out to Jacksonville to see them, and they did this show at the Milk Bar, and it was just unbelievable. They went, the week prior, they went out to all these schools and handed out flyers for and free passes for kids to get in for free, so because they wanted to pack the place out if there was an opportunity for them to get some type of deal. And I couldn't believe it. The place was totally packed full of people, probably over 1,000 people. And
they basically just kicked ass. It was awesome.
Last time they did a show in our venue was probably 2 years ago. And it was so packed out. It was the biggest night we ever had. And if the fire marshal had been there, we would have been shut down that night. And it was, 120 degrees inside, and there was sweat dripping off the walls, and it was nuts. It was total chaos. And they put on a great show.
Don did live sound for him that night, and I think everyone who was there was totally blown away. The one thing that I do remember, for some reason, there's a song called Stalemate that we recorded, and I pretty much just engineered all the sessions. And I think this was the second group of sessions that we did for demos, or perhaps it was another session that we were doing some new overdubs on, and it was the night of the show at the Milk Bar I was talking about. And up until that point, I was just totally engineered the whole thing, and Fred liked to do his vocals in the control room, and so we're in here, it's just he and I believe, and Don might have been in here, I don't remember. And I just had an idea, and I was like, hey, why don't you try to sing this chorus part? Because usually he just yells it, and he was kind of reluctant, and then he was like, okay, and then we did it, and it came out sounding kind of cool. And then that night, he got on stage and tried doing it, and it was like a total disaster, and he couldn't sing, and he came back in the next day, and I was like, that's a terrible idea, and made us change it. And so I just remember that that was the only time I ever tried to attempt to produce anything.
I was a little shocked when the first time I saw Wes on stage was when he had long hair. He had his hair in pigtails, little pink barrettes, just wearing like a half shirt, silver half shirt, real tight. I walked in at the back of the club, and they were like on the other side, and I was like, I didn't know they had a girl in the band. But when I got closer, I saw it was Wes, and I felt like a heel.
Working with Korn and Limp Bizkit was actually fantastic because it's such of a family atmosphere. Korn had a tremendous amount to do with them being signed. So obviously Korn wanted them along, and that made it real good. And they wanted to be there because they were friends. And the guys in Korn are just wonderfully nice people, really good people. To a topless bar, and Wes ran out of dollar bills, so he decided to put all of his change. He dropped it in the girl's G-string, which it fell out and went everywhere, and she was quite upset. And it took me some time to convince her that he wasn't being mean. It was just all the money he had, so he was donating it. Of course, with Wes, he's a super intelligent person, and you never know if he's joking around or if he actually did it innocently, but I think he did it innocently.
There was times when we were ecstatic to sell 5 T-shirts. I mean, I'd come back on the tour bus and I'd be like, guys, we sold 5 shirts. They're like, yeah. And it just, every day, it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just like, I mean, hey, we sold 500 T-shirts today. Oh, that's cool, you know. Now they're selling millions of shirts, making millions of dollars. Remember they played in played an arena with Pantera and Machine Head and all that, and Cold Chamber, in front of like 30,000 people, and that was just amazing. I mean, helping out on stage or whatever, and I'd just be like looking out over the crowd, and I'd just be like, wow, there's like 30,000 people there. I mean, personally, I couldn't do it. I mean, I'd get nervous or something. I mean, but I guess they've gotten used to it or whatever. They do a good job. One
time on the bus, we had a few drinks, and I passed out. And we woke up in Texas at a truck stop, and I got off the bus to go to the bathroom, and they'd completely painted me with magic markers. My face was completely painted, which I didn't realize until I walked past all the truckers and went to the bathroom, and I saw myself in the mirror, which was shocking. And it was permanent ink, so it took about half the tour for it to wear off. Later that day, I discovered they'd done my belly and made faces on my stomach also. So that was pretty funny. They got me on that. There was a a couple little homemade films we made in the bus, playing cards, Fred and myself playing cards. That was pretty hilarious. We used to do some mock interviews that were kind of funny.
Being with the guys is cool. The guys, I mean, the guys as individuals are really cool people. I mean, they're really a lot of fun to be with. I mean, I kind of saw, you know, living in such tight quarters with them, I saw like the good side and the bad side, you know, which it was good. I mean, they were good people. I had a lot of good times with them. A lot of fun.
When you go to one of their concerts, you can see it's not just one certain group of kids there. It's a mixture of kids they can be from 12 to 30 years old and just all kind of people, and they're all there, and they all like the music. So the theory, it really did work.
I mean, the band didn't ask me to do it or anything, but because I talk to record companies every week, every like promotion company I talk to, every record company I talk to, I would say, well, you got to check this band out, Limp Bizkit from Jacksonville. And when Flip signed them to Interscope, I had been telling the Interscope guy about them. He goes, hey, we just signed your boys, the guys you've been telling me about. And it was like a couple weeks to a month before he even heard it. And then when he heard it, it was really weird because I'd been telling him about something for a long time, then it was his project. So I would say that everyone I talked to was aware of them for a long time before, you know, there was anything even to hear.
They were always constantly experimenting. At one time they did a Paula Abdul song, and at another time they actually were working on Charlie Daniels' Devil Went Down to Georgia, doing it their way. So they were constantly stretching out and looking around, and Fred came up with the Faith thing and immediately put it into the live set, and the audience went off. So he knew, this is powerful, this is strong. And it turned out that was really the big hit. I always thought Counterfeit would be the big hit, but Faith really kind of took the spot there.
What's your favorite song?
Faith.
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 Faith was the obvious single. Faith was huge on the phones. I mean, the phone response was just huge to them anyway, but Faith was enormous.
They were going to close the gap between what you would say would be white rock, which was more of the metal type stuff, and the black music, which was more of the hip hop rap type thing. Their intention was purposely to cross those boundaries and bring something into coliseums and venues that both everybody could like.
After Faith, I saw not just the teenagers buying the album, but also you know, people in their 20s and their early 30s buying the album as well. I think it was the same people who were buying the new alternative rock albums, like the fans of Smashing Pumpkins would buy a Limp Bizkit album, fans of Blues Traveler would buy a Limp Bizkit album, just because the single, I think a lot of people from that age group in their late 20s and early 30s remembered Faith when it came out originally and liked the new take on it.
Honestly, the most vivid memory I have of the band entirely is when they performed the acoustic version of Counterfeit in the studio, because they hadn't planned to do it. I said, would you guys want to play live? And you know, because we talked about them playing live, but we never confirmed it up when it came in. I said, you guys going to play live? And they kind of looked at each other and they said, we'll play live, we'll do it. And they just did it totally off the top of their heads, and it was as brilliant as anything on their album. So to me, when I think about it, that was the most amazing thing. Probably because I can't go back and recreate it either.
And I think this album's just, I mean, it's already way bigger than anyone really thought it was going to be, and I think it's going to be even bigger. I think, you know, bigger than the Backstreet Boys, bigger than Spice Girls.
This is the archetypal rock sound